Hi guys. Hi guys. It's still Veterans Day and it's a little after 7 in the morning. I wanted to give a little bit more detail regarding the video I just did last because I don't think people understood what the hell happened to my brother. I didn't give enough past information because I was getting too damn choked up about the damn stuff, and every time I keep thinking about it, I get more and more pissed off about it. Not telling people about the damn shit, but what the hell happened during that time. There's a lot more to the story than meets the eye. It had to be told. Well, my mother finally found a place in North Hollywood, and she brought my brother along. My brother was having issues, and he had to be taken care of by specialist inpatients, shall we say, as a youth. Starting out a pilot program out in UCLA. A guy named Pincus was one of the counselors my brother depended upon, apparently. After a few years, my brother was deemed safe enough, sane enough. Got over his anger issues, at least most of them anyway. My mother was able to take him back home. And he tried to be the best brother he could possibly be when I was born. We were 8 years difference. We had a grandmother lived out in Bell. We had a great aunt lived out in Oakland, East Oakland. In her 70s, that my aunt lost her husband. Called him Uncle Al. She had to move her stuff from Oakland to Bell. Some of the stuff had to be sold, and other stuff was just there for my grandmother. So they both shared a house. And they lived there for several years until they couldn't. In the same street, we had Uncle George and Aunt Rainey. Stiffus. With, or Stiffus, actually. With the 3 daughters of youngest being Terry Lee. Middle, Georgia Lynn. Oldest, Tony Ray, God rest her soul. They were like sisters to my brother. He was living there for about a year or two. Aunt Rainey and Uncle George wanted to adopt David, but they couldn't. My mother wouldn't let him. We were living out in North Hollywood during the time. I guess from 68 all the way through 76. 2 different places. We even lived through the 1971 earthquake of Fillmore. Living in a street called Van Owen, right by Ethel. Van Owen, actually in North Hollywood, California. Every time to grow up. When I was going to elementary school, my brother was going over to Madison Junior High. My grandmother and my aunt are having issues regarding their health. And at the time my mother was finding out that our great aunt had been put into a hospital, convalescent hospital. And we had been under an eviction situation where we were losing the house. A huge property owner had bought a lot of tract, and the house was going to be turned into an apartment complex. Part of a deal there. We found a cheap place to live over in Arleta. Back in 75, 76, I think 76. Beginning of it. So, in January of 76, we got Aunt May out of the hospital, moved up to Arleta in the San Fernando Valley, right next to Pacoima, Van Nuys area. Probably San Fernando as well. Nice little hole-in-the-wall community. Yeah, right. Aunt May made some videos about that one there. We lived there, and we had taken care of our grandmother and our great aunt. We stayed there. My brother, the next year, in 77, went over to the Navy. And we had lost our grandmother, actually our great aunt, in 79, actually. My brother was still in the Navy, going through training and then going through missions left and right. When he found out about Aunt May, it was only after the funeral and stuff that he couldn't go. He wasn't allowed to come back home for emergency leave because of a mission he was on. I guess maybe he was a little bit pissed off at the Navy during that time. Because there was a couple of things that he was telling me about it that was really like acting out against the Navy for what the Navy did to him. Denied him seeing his family and saying goodbye to Aunt May because he was close to her as well. But what got to him is when our family, my mother and me, and our grandmother had to move out, forced out of our home in Arleta to a house in Granada Hills, were shoved into the place by church volunteers. And the church that was across the street because they wanted to get the property used for their pastor's house, and a few years later they sold the damn thing to somebody else. But they sold out on us, and we had to move. My mother was having difficulty times with Grandma. They were having arguments. We were still trying to adjust to the fact that we got shoved into a house. Furniture first and then boxes later. Actually, it was boxes first, then furniture later, and everything else was topsy-turvy in a place. It got to the point where Grandma had to go out and see her family out in San Diego for a short time, just to cool things off at home. Next thing we do, about a week or two later, Grandma's in the hospital having a stroke. He was also a stroke, actually. Ma wrote to David about this one and told David what was going on. David was going nuts. He knew Ma needed help. So he went through every channel he could in the Navy, all the way up to SINCPAC. Salvation Army, Red Cross, anybody. All turned him down flat. Because of some of his acting out in the Navy. The Navy wasn't going to allow him to go. Still punishing my brother. When he found out my mother was having a hard time trying to take care of Grandma at home because of the stroke situation, my mother had to turn into a worse caregiver situation at that point because her back was killing her. She had to take care of me as a young teenager, and I was struggling like crazy trying to help both of them out. And it wasn't easy because we needed a big, strong hand. Ma was having problems. We had to depend upon other family members and friends of ours to help us take care of Grandma. It wasn't easy. Caregiving was a pain in the ass. Ma was a caregiver to Ma and Aunt May before they passed away. Ma had her back wrecked because she was trying to move my grandmother all by herself, and she had to lay weeks in traction at home. I really had to learn how to be a caregiver, and so did my brother. So he understood what my mother was facing. Tried to tell everybody about that one. Everyone just said no. He packed his stuff up and left. He had stuff packed up in a sea bag. So he was going out for washing his clothing. He packed everything else. And next thing we know, we're opening up a door, and here's David. Like about a few days later. found a way to get from some base in Washington, Bremerton, Washington, where the Coral Sea was still there. The Ageless Wonder. They called it an Ageless Warrior. My brother called it Coral Shit. Step a class above the USS Ranger. Both were aircraft carriers. Flat tops. My brother was gratified that he was home. He thought he was on emergency leave, but he wasn't. Called it AWOL back then. These days, unauthorized absence. Also, he missed his ship, which are bad, bad things to do when you're in the Navy. Missing ship movement? Ooh. Get your asses reamed like that, you get serious break time. Serious break time. He didn't give a shit. Navy said, fuck him. So he went out looking for work, support mine everywhere he could. But he knew the Shore Patrol was going to be looking for him. One day he's working at a movie studio as a security guard. And he found one guy who had been there for decades, a security guard. He gets picked up by Shore Patrol, by INS, and by Nazi hunters. He didn't know he was a Nazi. During that time, a friend of my brother was just hearing things about Shore Patrol looking for my brother. My brother had to leave. He had gone to different jobs, bounced from place to place, trying to stay one step ahead from Shore Patrol. Things I'm not exactly at ease talking about, but my brother did that anyway. He wanted to get shit off his chest, be honest with people. Things he was embarrassed to say. It gotten to the point where our uncle from down San Diego, he had a military career that was exemplary. He had been a fleet championship, boxing championship, because he was a Marine. He survived Incheon. He never talked about his war experiences in Korea. He became a cop, a special investigator for the state of California, and a special investigator for the county of San Diego and city of San Diego. Criminal psychologist, earned his doctorate degree. At one time, we actually had a thesis statement of this thesis doctorate. Wish we kept it. He was also under the laws. He was a law enforcement officer, basically. Still, they found out about my brother. Give my brother one warning. I'll catch you down here again. If I catch you and you haven't cleared your name, I have no choice, David, but to arrest you. My brother turned himself in that week. And it's been about a year. In confinement, Brig Diego Garcia. So finally, got to the point where at home it got so damn bad that he needed to go home, take care of Mom. He risked a hell of a lot, and he risked a future to take care of her and us. Devotion to the family was that strong. It wasn't a fear of the Navy. He didn't fear the Navy. He feared what the hell would happen to Mom if he wasn't there to take care of her. He fought his attorney like hell to get out in the quickest damn way, and to do that, it was going to be a bad conduct discharge. They wanted to get rid of him under a disarmable, but the attorney knew what was going on and talked it up to a bad conduct because of his record. It's not despite of, or in spite, it's because of his record. He had earned himself distinctions, but he also earned himself some bad marks. He was lucky. He got out and helped my mother out. In '83, Grandma died. By then, my brother was already into drugs and alcohol. But he did help my ma out. See, some of this stuff is not exactly the easiest damn thing to tell people, because usually in recovery centers or doctor's visits, stuff like, or even private conversations, stuff like this is usually told. But in his later years, about within the past 10 to 15 years before his passing, he was talking to people about this. People who would talk to him about his military stuff, and then once he gets a connection going with certain people, he was talking about it like crazy. Not boasting, not bragging, but telling them what to do, what not to do. What he should have done and what he should not have done. And it was the hardest damn thing for him to tell people this, because he was still ashamed about it. He was humiliated, but it was necessary for him to do this. Now, the reason why I talk about this damn thing, because I've seen other people talking about Great American Heroes shit. You know, there was a cartoon series on Hasbro that Marvel hooked up with, and maybe a couple other animation studios, regarding the series of G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Damn thing came out in '83 and is still ongoing to this day. Different forms, different variations of the damn shit. But trying to tell you how special the American soldier is, specialized in fighting an enemy terrorist organization. My brother wasn't fighting an enemy terrorist organization. God, he was fighting himself and everything else in life. He did what the country told him to do, and he did it. But then when he needed help from the country to take care of his mother, the Navy turned his back on him. Red Cross turned his back. He had respect still for the Red Cross, though, just not the bureaucracy that was dealing with the Navy at that point. They really didn't like him. The administration at that point was under Reagan. And Reagan didn't exactly take too kindly to people who left the service one way or another, other than honorable or general. So my brother wasn't giving a fair shake at all with all those admirals. Not even with the current administration. My brother at one time told me that he was decorated because of his actions out in Beirut back in '83 by President Reagan. Well, it turns out months later he gets to have his back stabbed by him. Exactly have a fond memory of Reagan. But when Reagan died and his body was being displayed at the Reagan Library, my brother traveled to see it. And my brother was part of the caravan that saw Reagan. There was a group of veterans outside, disabled veterans, who were waiting patiently in line. It would take at least 3 hours for them to get up to the Simi Valley area. And when some of the people who were the organizers found out about these veterans, and some of them disabled, they transported them. My brother was also having problems with his kneecaps. Too much pressure, too much wear puts fluid on the knees, and he was having problems walking. They took him to a first aid station, drained him off, gave him some pain pills, and took him all the way over to the front of the line, courtesy of scooters, those golf carts actually. And there he met with the other veterans, and they paid their respect to the former commander-in-chief. It was the most humbling and humiliating thing he's ever been through, and gratifying for him. I never had the chance. I was working at the time, and I was a caregiver to my mother as well. My brother, to me, is like G.I. Joe. Wasn't big, wasn't tough. Actually, I like, Sergeant Slaughter, but he had a heart of a SEAL. He had a heart of the United States soldier in him. He was a frogman. He gave a hell of a lot for his country. There was a time when we actually needed help from the Salvation Army of getting the apartment I'm living in right now. His discharge, despite the fact that it said bad conduct, or actually other than honorable. Apparently in the computer it's still bad conduct, but the paperwork said other than honorable. He still through the United States Navy trying to find out what was going on. I don't know if his discharge was ever executed. But it helped him to get the apartment. And we were grateful to the Army, Salvation Army, for that. There was a lot of aspects of my brother I never talked about. Because it's hard as hell to do that, even on a Veterans Day like this. To honor my brother, I talk about him right now. And on a lot of occasions too, when I can. I honor him and I honor his memory. I honor his service with the United States government, the United States Navy, that he so proudly served. I know he so proudly served him, how come he had issues with him? Because he was at war. He was at war because he was in pain, caused by sailors who gave him that pain. Sailors paid for it. My brother still carried the scars up until the day he died. Maybe they didn't do anything about it. But the thing is, he was proud he served. And I don't throw that away for anything. But I just had to tell this. I just had to say this. I am honoring my brother on the Veterans Day. I honor the memory. I honor the life. What more can I say or do? We were John C. 7:34 in the morning. It is November 11th, 2020, Veterans Day, Wednesday.